Hello, everybody. Today we're going to talk about master pages within InDesign. Master pages is the section within your page panel which is above this line right here, and then you have your document pages down below this line right here. There is the distinction is that this is the pages that you actually want to change the content from page to page, but master pages works similar to headers and footers within a Google Doc or a Microsoft Word file. The difference is instead of just the top or the bottom portion of a Google Doc or a Word file, the master page can be applied to the entire page throughout the entire document. The idea of a master page is that it's really very useful within publication design, magazines, newspapers, because you have lots of content and you have to be able to organize it, but you also want to create some diversity within your page layout so it doesn't look so boring all the time. So it's in a way of creating multiple templates that you can put text boxes and image boxes and then pick and choose which page is appropriate for an article or for a layout, and then use those boxes accordingly for the document itself. So that gets into a whole complicated things, but I want to show you on the simple way how it works, and then you can think about how it can be expanded into a much larger and complex project. So I always make sure that you're working in the right page. Is make sure to look at the highlight that's being on the page that you're working on. So I'm working in this set. It says it's blue. I'm working within the document panel or document pages, and if I highlight this one, I'm working within the master page. If you do everything on the master page, that means it's just going to repeat itself, and you're not going to see the rest of the work if you add more pages. So I've already created a text box here, and I've also created an image box at the bottom right corner of the page. But the text box, you can actually assign it to tell it to do things, such as page number. And this is a text box. I dropped a cursor in there. If you go over to type, scroll down to special characters, markers, current page number. And there's a number of different options that you can place in here, like the next page number or the previous page number if you want to section off the book differently, or section markers. So there's a number of different ways that you can use this, but this is the most common one. And I want to place it in there, and it says the letter A. And it's really more of a functional thing that they have to put this in here, that there's going to be a character. And what you can also do at this time with a master page is actually you can define the characteristics of the font that you're going to use and have it preset. So I'm just going to use something a little bit different today. So maybe I'll use Arial Black. Whoops, there we go. Now, that's set. And then I'm going to drop in here an image, and we're going to talk about images again, because so again, there's a text box there, or an image box with the X through it, and simply highlight it. I want to say place. Whoops, let me go up to the keyboard or the menu commands, because that way it's a little bit easier for everybody to follow. Place. Search for the file that you want to place in there. It can be a JPEG, or it can be a TIFF file, or an EPS file. And today I'm going to use an EPS file. Let me find it real quick. College Relations. I'm going to use the college logo. Now, the logo, comes in many different varieties. Particularly if you look at one particular logo, you'll find either a vector or bitmap image. There is a lecture I do about vector and bitmap, but ultimately if you're doing an advertisement or work in print, if it's going to be printed on a document, you always want to use the vector images. If you're going to work in the web, you want to use the bitmap image. And the logo, the college logo, has within the vector file a couple of different versions, or 3 different versions. There's the black and there's the white one, and then there's the one with color. Black and white ones are very utilized within documents that are going to be just printed in black and white. They know it's going to be black or white, so they want to just avoid having to use the color, because the color of the logo. A color logo would be gray tone, but in the black and white they knock it to just black and white. I'm going to use the college color version. And I want to say show import options because it's also good to have to see what the options are. It's not necessarily imperative for an EPS file, which is a vector image. It would be more imperative if it was a Photoshop document or a PDF document, which has multiple pages, because this is where you get to choose multiple pages. I want to place it, and it sits in there. A couple of things to always think about when you're dropping in files. Let's see here. It's its placement, and so this is kind of the structure of it. So let's go look to a regular document page. I want to choose page 7. And here you see, if you look at the page panel, right at the top it tells you what master page is being applied. And that is master page A, which is the one that has the page number and the college logo. And if you go through the document, there's page 5. I kind of put it in the middle. Again, you can have a command of where to put anything you put on a page can be placed into a master file, and it would just be there. Now, the nice thing about master pages is that if I decide to take this page and want to move it and shuffle it, up to page 1, it will change the pages for you. So it always corresponds to the page number that's on the page panel, and the page number on the document will change accordingly. The other thing is that if I were to go in here and say I wanted to move this, I cannot actively select it from this point because, again, everything on a master page is kind of a locked step. There are ways to unlock it, to move things in a special need. But particularly with page numbers or logos or book titles, I kind of go on the edges here. Those things I just kind of keep repeating so it ensures that when it's printed that everything is in the same place all the time wherever you turn the page. But ultimately, I can't move the logo or anything, so you kind of have to always go back to the master page to kind of readjust it and say I want to move it over here now, put the page number closer to the top. And then if I come back over here, now the page numbers move closer to the top. A couple of things about images. I always want to talk about this, and it's always good to have a refresher, is scaling images in proportion. Of course, we can always select an image and kind of like scale it, and by just grabbing the corner, oops. But ultimately, this is no longer the Nike logo. Nike would not appreciate your logo being used in this manner and being stretched or changed colors because it doesn't really fully represent the brand accordingly. You can try to get it back to where it's supposed to be, but I think that's just kind of much harder than it should be. But what you can ultimately do is actually use the tools to kind of fix that. If you come up to the top here, to the control bar, there's this right here which is called the proportions, and you can see that pretty much the top number and the bottom number must match in order to be proportional and correct proportions. So I'm going to just copy that and then place that over there and paste it and then hit the enter button. Now it's in proportion, so anything you bring in is always going to come into the proportion of the original size. And that's always the easiest way to verify if your logos are in proportion or not. So it's something to kind of keep in mind. So for the master pages, again, it's a way of setting up a page to have repetitive information be in the same place every time for every page within the document. If you have any questions, email me or drop in during a Zoom meeting. Thanks.